say is, and that was great what you said. That was awesome. And I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I live in a zip code that in the 32206 zip code, we suffer with asthma and respiratory problems, and it's the highest in the whole state of Florida. And with asthma and respiratory problems, we applied and wanted to apply for the HHS, the grant, but it's a challenge there because it's 250 pages long, and you know, I mean, that's my problem, and but you know, somewhere we have to have a happy medium here, you know, and say, because now for the 250-page long, I can give you that information. It might not be the information you want, but for years and decades and for generations, I have enough information and documentation that would suffice that. But I said that to say this is that we need to make it more, you know, accommodatable for the communities to be able to apply for these grants and to address these issues, because we're not getting better. And I want to say this one more thing, is that our Commander-in-Chief has done the right thing, because our health care, which he did in the beginning, is the most important thing. Because when you go, and everybody's saying jobs. Well, if you go to a corporate, if your health is not well, if you're not well and you're not in good health, no one is going to hire you, because insurance companies are not going to give them the go-ahead to do it. So if there's any question as to what we should be doing, we should be looking at the health care and the health issues of our community in these United States of America.
Thank you. So we have some pretty specific questions that we want to get answered from these last two questioners. Michelle got 3 questions in, of course. So, Terry, did you want to answer one of those specific questions?
Do you want to do by A, B, C? Yeah. Do you want to?
I heard Bayview Hunters Point. Can you just restrict your answer to that, Reggie?
I'm very happy to talk with you about it. I think it's the issues have been reviewed at the local, state, and federal level by multiple agencies, and all the facts are on the table. I'm very happy to go over them with you.
Okay. And Mossville?
Okay, yes. I don't know about specific communities, but I can tell you that the Affordable Care Act does call for $12.5 billion over the next 5 years for funding of community health centers and the National Health Service Corps, which is the loan repayment programs for practitioners, which brings practitioners into communities that are underserved. So there's currently, over the course of the year, and you can look at the www.hrsa.gov/grants website to look for what are the active grants that are open right now with regard to community health centers. There'll be more funding available as time goes on. We just closed one grant program for new access points, which would to put more community health centers across the country. So the money is coming, the opportunities are coming, and so I just look out for it.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. And John's going to respond to the Sustainable Communities question.
So, the work of Department of Interior in this coming years, we did 28 listening sessions around the country over the last year in communities across the country, talking not only to adults, but we had 18 youth sessions as well. And we heard exactly what you said about investing in communities so that the people that live there can enjoy the benefits of this kind of development of parks and trails and riverfronts. So the people, not to move them out, but to really give them the benefits of all of these resources. So the Secretary of Interior and I and others are focused on rebuilding the Land and Water Conservation Fund and investing that in specific communities around the country to improve those parks and open spaces.
Okay, thank you. And so we have this woman in the back with the blue sweater.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Gonzalez. I'm the CEO of Nos Quedamos, and I am part of the New York Environmental Justice Alliance. I don't mean to be condescending or anything but when you tell me that I need to make another study on something else to tell me that truck traffic gives asthma to my kids, how many ways does it have to be said before action becomes reality? I may not have a PhD in physics or in chemistry, but I do have a PhD on life. And for every family of 4, 3 have asthma. Children go next to schools, next to highways. How many different ways are we going to say the same thing over and over and over again? It's enough with the studies, and start applying the studies to real legislation in order to get what we need done in our communities. There is no other way of putting it.
Thank you. Okay. And on this side, this woman right here.
Thank you. Is it on? My name is Ann Joyner, and I'm president of Cedar Grove Institute for Sustainable Communities. I have a couple of quick suggestions I hope you will give some thought to. First is real easy. If you all would consider giving your email out of all of the panelists all day long so that people that don't get to make comments can reach you with their comments. The second is that the EPA gives out small community grants. They need to be easier to apply for. They need to be better funded, and every single other agency in the federal government needs to have EJ grants available as well, especially HUD, but all of them. Regarding water quality, water contamination results right now are not accessible to the public in many, many places. They are not aggregated. They're not given by what the water supply is, so you can't look at what's happening for a particular water supplier. And that needs to change, and that's within your purview to change. So I hope you will think about that. Somebody said earlier that, I think it was, you were trying to model best practices. That assumes that local governments are proactive in trying to help the communities we're talking about and not just help them disappear. And I would like to know if you can come up with some incentives, carrot and or stick, so that that won't be the case. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any responses here? Should we keep moving with?
I'd like to mention a couple of things. I came from the advocacy world before I went into federal service. And I have experienced firsthand the unbelievably frustrating system that exists to access federal funding for a whole range of purposes, studies or actual investments that are different from the norm. And in my case, I ran an NGO, a 501c3 organization, which in many, many cases is not considered an eligible recipient of a lot of different kinds of federal funds. And I feel that as we move forward, we have got to really listen to the challenges that people have about trying to work with the federal government and have the federal government be a more responsive partner to you. When HUD stood up its Sustainable Communities program, like the National Park Service, we also went around and listened to what people said before we defined the criteria for the program. I'm really proud of that, in part because it turns out that HUD had never done that before. It seems like such an obvious thing to do. Ask people what it should be and use that information to devise the criteria for the program. We also tried extremely hard to make the criteria for our competition simple and easy. And it's really hard to do that within the context of the federal government. We're trying, but it is, I don't think we're anywhere near close to getting that system right. I do think that the more that we can maintain an open line of communication to practitioners, to advocates in communities, we can, continue to change to be better partners. I think that at least from HUD's perspective, we are not trying to dictate what communities should do with our funding, but we are trying to set a very high bar. Says, we want green and sustainable communities for all people. It should not result in displacement. We need to make some fundamental changes to the ways that our funding is utilized at the local level. But we also need to rely on the coalitions at the local level to make sure that that really happens. The federal government isn't very good at working at the local level, and we need to find some new ways in which we can enable the good work that you are talking about here.
Okay, this has been a great discussion. Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions, and I'm going to ask that folks who have not had an opportunity to talk at all. So in the back here.
Thank you. I'm Robin Morris Collin. I am the first law professor to teach sustainability in the United States. Just published an encyclopedia on the topic.
Oh.
And I would like to say that there is an unfortunate, deliberate color line between sustainability and environmental justice. And that color line isn't green. And every time sustainability is talked about at the federal level, and every time the federal government gives money for sustainability to be discussed at the local level, environmental justice has to be there, or it's not sustainable.
That's right.
There is no sustainability without justice. There is no sustainable society without justice, and it shouldn't be an add-on. It is not a postscript to any chapter. It's an essential part of sustainability. Point 2. Collaboration requires competence. And
Yes. That's right.
collaborating with people who do not understand environmental justice wastes our time, sets us back, distracts us, and does all sorts of other bad things. So, in terms of collaboration and partnership, I would ask all of you federal government officials to make environmental justice competence part of your requirements. Otherwise, you're wasting our time.
Yeah.
Last point. Building capacity at the local level is important, and you do that by funding operations and not just projects. The kinds of organizations that need to be there are not going to be able to survive unless you fund their operations. And we need more of that money and not just project-based operational money. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Very good.
here.
My name is Barbara Miller, and I come from the Bunker Hill Superfund site. In 1983, it was designated the second largest NPL site in the nation of 21 square miles. In 2000, it was extended to, 21 square miles. In 2000, it was extended to 1,500 square miles. There's approximately 500,000 people who are affected. I live in the epicenter of the site in a company town, which I believe needs to be dealt with, within EPA's whole cultural protocol, because until somebody has actually lived in a company town in a very isolated, poor community, you have no idea what it's like to go up against, let's say, obstacles. There's 6 generations in my community living with chronic lead and heavy metal contaminated health problems. In 1999, there were 90 pages of titles of health studies done at the site, and more coming every day, that all lend to the realization that the pollution and the contamination is causing these health problems. We have